right, so one of these topics came up with one of my remote hitters, and I thought this was a really good topic to cover. And so I'm going to go over the macro, like a bigger conversation, as well as that particular conversation. So basically, what happened was I got a message from one of my remotes, and it's like, hey, swing felt really good. You felt really good off the tee, you felt really good off toss. Then I went to machine today, and he normally does overhand VP. And he's like, I went to machine today, and I started going back to some of the old moves that we've been working on getting ironed out of my swing, right? And he's, saying, hey, this one time, he's had days that week where it's felt good. He was just giving me feedback, right? And he was just saying, like, hey, today off the machine, I was creating that reverse C shape, which we've been talking about, like him getting stuck on his backside, kind of yanking with his back and creating this reverse C, right? Which causing him to get really like up and out of the zone, and top spinning balls pull side and flaring balls oppo. And so one of the things that I wanted to address, and I'm making this for him as well as a lot of people, just because I know he's not the only one that's had this or felt this, is basically understanding space, time, direction, and how all of that can be influenced based on the toss or the way that you're getting fed. So like, for example, as I was watching some of the videos, when he gets front toss, it's usually, and this is really general, it's usually, again, 15 feet away, something like that, right? And somebody's tossing nice and slow, just kind of, lobbing. He hits heavy balls, lobbing heavy balls, right? There's not a real big time constraint on him. It's a really comfortable environment, right? So one of the things that we have kind of talked about, me and him, is when things get faster, right, or the game speeds up, or it's overhand, or it's machine, right, is how that's going to challenge spacing. So basically, when he's going from front toss, think about the distance and the speed of the ball compared to where he's at, right, and how that space and that distance isn't going to really challenge him from a timing perspective. It's not moving too fast or too difficult for him to be able to basically create the move to swing that he wants to create, right? So now, for example, let's just say we're doing front toss, and I make him step forward. One whole step forward would then shrink the distance between the tosser and him, which would then make the timing faster at a little bit tougher time constraint. And that is because he decreased the distance or the space between him and the ball, right? So now we talked about as that space decreases, well, now he needs to be able to have more time, more space, or he needs to feel like he has enough space and more time or enough time to get his move off. So if we decrease the distance or we increase the speed or the velocity in which it's coming, right, our body will start to adapt, right? And a lot of times too for him, he will do a move that feels more powerful because it's moving faster, and he wants to try to mimic the intensity of the ball or the environment. But as a byproduct, he'll do a move that loses him spacing. Okay, so from the backside, right, if you're the catcher, he'll do a move as the ball speeds up, where then he tries to create a lot of power, but then he stands up, he uses a lot of his back, his shoulder, his head, all stand up, his arms, he gets stuck in this position like this, and he loses spacing, right, which that actually makes his swing slower. While he feels like it's a more powerful move, it is slower, right? So then he starts fouling balls off, popping them up, fouling them back. Then he starts changing his timing. Okay, well, I keep fouling them off, popping them back. So then what is the next adjustment? I'm going to be earlier. So now everything gets way out front. He starts hitting low ground balls. He starts hooking around balls, getting around everything. And all of this is just simply because we changed the environment that he's in, right? We're shooting balls out of the machine. It's coming a little bit faster. He feels a little crunched for time, crunched for space. And so now this is where the conversation comes into, yeah, the swing felt really good, but you're in a comfortable environment from a like a timing standpoint, from the perspective of, hey, it's 15 feet getting past you at 10, 12 mile an hour, whatever. Well, now the machine's at 40 feet shooting at 70 mile an hour. It's really quick, right? And so now when we add that time constraint, your body wants to create a lot of power, and then you lose space with your body, between the body and the ball. And that's where some of these issues can arise. So one of the things that we talked about, or that we continue to work on and we do talk about, is when we do scoot back, is like, okay, well, first and foremost, what do I have to do to make myself like I have more time, right? How do I feel like I have more space? And we do drills in particular that help with sequencing, that help with spacing, etc. It could be a setup, right? So like sometimes for him, it could be we do these tuckers where he hits it and then goes back this way. One of the biggest things that he does that loses him space and time is he'll spin, his arms will get stuck behind him, and then he drags the barrel into contact. So one of the things that we do is we do tuckers, which help him when he swings. He doesn't want to spin his hips in the way because that's going to slow his body down, because he's thinking about opening it this way, and it actually stops his hips, gets his barrel delivered, and now he has better spacing, better timing, he's able to get the barrel out. And so that's one of the ways that we address that problem. But then there's the complete other side, right? Is a lot of times too, what I see and what I challenge a lot off the machine with my hitters here in house is they do really good off front toss, but then when they go in game, what do they struggle with? Slower pitching, right? Well, front toss, right, if it's from 10, 15 feet away and I'm tossing 15 mile an hour, the reaction time's actually pretty quick. Like I don't need to be adjustable out front so much on front toss as I do on like a slow curveball from 60 feet away. So, and we got the other side. Well, not only does the machine possibly add a time constraint of being faster, it can add the time constraint of giving me more time, right? And if I have more time, then it gives me a bigger opportunity to get out of positions and to, create wasted movements is what I see a lot of times. So then we scoot back in the machines, let's say a slow curveball. Well, then I see athletes that never really lunge onto their front side. They start lunging and reaching out front, or they start trying to stack, and then they do this toe tap and they sit here, and then everything just spins, and they're like, oh, what the heck, like I can't square a ball up. Right? So then we have to talk about, okay, from a timing perspective, right, is like, well, if that ball, right, like you're used to seeing 70, right, let's say it's like a 12, 13 kid, you're used to seeing 70, right, and this ball's coming in at 60 or 55, well, it's like, well, how do I stay on that pitch? Well, essentially, they all are told, hey, stay back, stay back. So then they all stay back like this, right, and then they're stuck on their backside, and then they're spinning, and then they're all over the place, and then they're like, I'm trying to stay back, then they do it, and then a fastball comes, and they miss their fastball, then they get yelled at, right, and it's this whole thing. So I kind of address it with them as well. Really, what's happening is the ball's just covering the same distance, but in a slower amount of time. So I need to figure out how to stay on that line longer, stay through it, and keep my barrel through the pitcher longer, which, super simple, just comes from staying closed longer, right? Giving me more adjustability out front. So I've had a lot of success with hitters where I'm like, hey, the pitch is slow. Rather than trying to think about staying back, think about staying closed, right? If I stay closed, I'll stay through it longer, right? So even if I am early, I can still cover that pitch, but even I can be on time and spin like this, right? And I'm not going to have great flush contact, right? And I can be early, and if I do that, I'm really not going to be good, right? I'm going to be like one of these positions where I'm reaching, trying to throw my hands late, right? And just trying to fight to touch the ball, right? So then we go from that standpoint. It's like, okay, so what drills, what thoughts, what cues help me stay closed longer? What helps me stay in line with the pitcher, in my lane with my barrel staying long through the middle? And that is what we're going to attack, right? That's what we're going to address when we go to a slower machine and try to kind of challenge that time constraint as well. And so I just thought this would be a good topic to talk about because I know a lot of hitters, I deal with it and I see it and I hear it all the time, just, through different coaches that I know and, siblings that play the game, coach the game and stuff, and listening to the players I have is just one of the biggest things from a training perspective that I see people have problems with is trying to get their swing to basically progress, right? And to be able to go into different environments. Like they'll say, hey, I hit really good off BP, but I really struggle off machine, or I hit really good off machine and I really struggle off live, or, all these different things. But when you better understand the problems that you're trying to solve, like, hey, this machine's fast, right? So it's giving me a time constraint where, I have to sequence properly. I have to be able to get my barrel out. I gotta have space, right? Because if I have less space, it's gonna create a move that's longer and needs more time. So now I'm gonna have to commit early. Or sometimes, right, when I get really good at that, then what the team does is they'll throw in somebody who throws really slow, get my timing all messed up, right? Because now I'm set to this fast timing. Then I would get jumpy, or I'm out front, or I'm like stacked on my backside, and those guys usually have success. So it's like, okay, well, what's the problem? Right? The problem is now this guy's throwing slow. It's not so much of a spacing problem per se as it is more of a direction problem. Like I need to stay long through the middle on this guy. So what thoughts, what cues, what drills really help with that? And that can help from a training perspective all the way up to game time, right? Like what's the matchup? Are they throwing inside, outside? Is it a righty, lefty, slow, fast? What are they trying to challenge me with? So the topic just got brought up, and I thought it'd be a good one for not only him, but for everybody to kind of hear. It's like, okay, based on what I'm doing, it's expected to have some failure as we progress up, but then it's more important to understand, why is this machine challenging me? Is it challenging because it's fast and it's challenging my space? Is it challenging because it's slow, or it's a slider, or the location is challenging my direction, right? So I better know how to address that problem, and it doesn't just become a frustrating progression that I never want to go to, where now we're, hey, I just don't want to hit machine because it's like I never hit off good off the machine. And, the inevitable is you're going to go to college and you're going to hit off the machine at some point, or you're going to go in high school and you're going to hit off the machine at some point, right? And so learning how to identify what the real issue is and be able to address it is really important as a hitter and as a coach. And so just thought it was a good topic to cover. And so, like always, we have a ton of different resources on, drills, courses, different things that we use to help with this stuff. Definitely, worth taking a look at. But like always, have any questions,